Alright guys, so I really haven't been making videos much at all the past decent amount of time. Been focusing a lot of time on music and stuff, but this is one of those special occasions that I feel like it's time to come back and talk about some life. So today's a big day for me. You know, dates are very important to me. I'm always really good about dates. Um, but today would be 2 years since my ex broke up with me. And I just wanted to talk about that day and then that journey going on. So basically, it was a weird situation, but it kind of started in like late July of 2022. And we went to like a thrift store a couple counties away that unfortunately had some type of contamination of COVID. And unfortunately, we all three got it. All three of us that were living together at the time. That was my ex and one of their relatives. I was actually the last to contract it. As far as what COVID felt like for me, not too much. Honestly, I was high most of the time I had COVID because I refused to feel it sober. And if I didn't have to, I wasn't gonna. But what I can say was, I felt this weird, like, dry feeling, right? And my taste wasn't really altered too much. Like, I kind of lost taste for like 2 days, and that was about it. It really didn't affect me too much, but my ex was going through it. They were claiming that, like, meat or certain things tasted like spoiled meat or something. But I don't know. They kind of were like hypochondriatic in a way, so like a pandemic like that was just like the perfect recipe for a disaster. Anyways, as they and their relative were recovering because they got it quicker, so they were kind of over the event horizon before me. I got called into my ex's room, and you know, I just knew like something was off. There's just a weird tension in the air. I could just sense it, you know. So like, I guess I wanted to see if like I was in deep shit or not. So I just replied like, okay, I'll meet you in the bedroom. Do you need me to bring you anything, or do you need anything, or want anything, you know? And I can't remember if they said like that won't be necessary. I feel like it was something along those lines, but I could be wrong. But I remember feeling like the whole breakup felt really similar to like getting like fired from like a job, where it's like, you know, I got like brought into like a bedroom, and I sat on like the edge of a bed and kind of like looked at them, and they said, "Oh, I'm gonna like, you know, I think we should break up." And then that happened, and then like honestly, I was okay with it the first time. I don't know why I didn't just like keep with it, but I really loved that person for some reason. And we kind of got back together, but looking back, it was so obviously just kind of a second win type of ordeal. And it's kind of fast forwarding to today, 2 years ago. It was a Sunday. August 14th was a Sunday. And, we kind of had this huge blowout breakup thing previously, like I was just describing, which resulted in me getting kicked out, or so I thought, but I had this apartment lined up miraculously. It, literally just fell in my lap. I could literally say this was a miracle. Because I had no out other than this. So I just had to make this work. Anyhow, it was very stunning. But, I got this place, and they agreed, okay, I'll stay with you, let's just slow down. Maybe we, went in too fast, because we got together and moved in real quick, which was a stupid idea, admittedly. And, it was the day before I was supposed to come here to sign my lease, and we were taking a shower together. And I remember my ex, they just kind of froze. And I remember I was standing to where my back was getting hit by the water coming from the shower head. And they were facing this way, down a little bit at the other end of the shower. And they just froze for a second. And then they looked at me with wide eyes, and they're like, look, I just had this really intrusive thought that you're going to cheat on me, and I really need you to tell me right now you're not going to cheat on me. And I froze, half because I just thought it was such an absurd thing, but also half because I froze in that I had bad experiences with that question regarding a previous connection, and so I just froze on it. Half on that trauma too, I think. Trauma, or whatever you want to call it. And they got pissed off that I couldn't do anything, and then they walked away. And I was embarrassed, and I felt stupid, and how could something, I was so focused on we literally had everything lined up. It was the day before, I could not have any worse luck, but I think in retrospect, something was looking out for me. I'm not necessarily saying my ex is a horrible person or someone to stay away from, but I know with enough time that's elapsed now that they just weren't the person for me. And I think something was looking out for me, and basically preventing that from happening, because admittedly, looking back, it's a little absurd to hop into a relationship 3 months after being in a 4-year marriage, or not not married for 4 years, but a relationship that resulted in a marriage that spanned 4 years of time. And it messed me up, and I should have put my pride aside and my desires aside and just focused on myself from the get-go. I kind of kick myself sometimes for not, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad I didn't at the time, because I felt like I deserved that time to myself to just kind of live loud. And on top of that, it was the last of my youth, it felt like, before all the big responsibilities came in. I would say the rest of my youth, it died when I was 25, and I think it died with that relationship. And for a while I kind of looked at that ex as the one who always got away. But now, I'm not saying, they're just young at heart, and I'm just not. And I realize I'm a pretty cutthroat and rough person sometimes. And I had never been in a dynamic where I was the person, like, hurting someone's feelings. Even just, like, my way of joking was, like, genuinely hurting that ex's feelings. And at a certain point, like, I think there's a thing to compromise, and I think there's just steamrolling and the other end not compromising, and it just kind of felt like that. Like, I grew up a different way, and I lived a different life, and I feel like that wasn't really taken into consideration at all. I just had to live like this model expectation of what they wanted. At least that's how I look at it now, right? But anyways, that night, probably around like 9 or 10 that night that we broke up, we were like awkwardly watching New Girl together. And it was like one of the final seasons. And I think one of my goals, I think I started to realize, like, we were going to break up. Like, this just wasn't feasible. Even if I wanted to believe it to not be true, I feel like my gut knew that it was coming. And our thing was actually to watch New Girl. I liked it, And I really wanted to finish that show with them. And I never got to. Because they were the person that introduced it to me. And it was really the only time it was like... It was just more fun to watch that show as like a community thing, I still watch it time to time now. Like, I enjoy it, and I just kind of have a crush on Zooey Deschanel. But I don't know. It just doesn't have the same appeal that it did at the time to me. And I'll talk more about that later, but I always remember that was one of the biggest things that upset me. I was so frustrated. I was like, we couldn't even finish the fucking show together. They just fucking, I really feel like if they gave me, like, one last chance, everything would have worked out. And I was, like, a little upset at some points, because thinking back throughout this whole time, I was like, they didn't really take into consideration. I was, like, rerouting my life a fourth or third time. Like, I was just stressed out anyway. It's not like, and I'm on high alert because I'm stressed out to try to keep this thing together. And they're just kind of just, walking around, and it doesn't matter, because it never mattered. Because it's a standard that you can't meet, that you're not supposed to meet, and in the end, it's your fault. I don't know. That's probably coming from, like, a bitter place. I mean, I definitely made my fuck-ups, too. I've already spoken about them in the past, regarding this one, But we were watching that show together, eating Chinese takeout, and I remember I was just so stressed, I couldn't even eat. I had something with peanuts in it, but the peanuts just felt so dry, and the sauce just was, like, really, really attaching to my mouth, Like, it was just unpleasant. Some episode about a beanbag, and I remember, this was the weird thing, I was like, I'm gonna have a beanbag in my apartment. And I actually did have a beanbag when I came here, because the thing was like, this was promised to be like a semi-furnished apartment, which I'll get to. But anyways, that night ended with me just kind of staring off into like a dark wall that was lit by purple string lights, but very, very dimly lit. And I just heard my ex shouting at me. I don't even remember what they were saying, and all I could really do was focus on a section of the wall. And they slammed the door, and I remember that was like one of the loudest door slams of my life that I ever heard. And I just stared at this fucking wall for like an hour and a half. I was just so exhausted, I don't even think I was crying anymore at that point. And then there was like this awkward 3-day period after that, because the next day I walked here, signed my lease, came back. I knew it was over, you know. But for some reason, I walked back into my ex's room and like kind of like, I begged. Let's be honest, we all grovel. Everybody grovels one time when they're broken up with. And I did, and I don't even know what I was thinking. I should have just kept my dignity and kept walking, but, you know, I was young and I was in love. What can I say? I had this whole life I thought was just gonna come to me in like an instant at that point, and it just came and snatched away, and I felt like reset to like level 0 in life, you know. But what I was tasked with was building my own foundation, and over the years, you know, it's just really come a long way. But it wasn't easy, you see. It wasn't easy. You know, I didn't even sleep in here until the third night because it was just so disgusting. Because I was promised, again, a semi-furnished apartment, but she had like a volunteer from one of the tenants volunteered, right? And ransacked this place, stole all the furniture out of it because that jackass sold it. I know who he is. And when I came in here, like, the guy didn't even, you know, if he was gonna do that, he could have at least actually cleaned it. Just made it look like you gutted the apartment and just strip cleaned it. But no, instead, like, he didn't mop the floors, didn't wipe the walls down, just fucking threw everything in the garbage bags. And I remember I met up with that guy around my first Halloween around here because we hold an event. He was like, "Oh, you're you know," he had said my apartment number, and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, that shit was a pigsty when I was cleaning it out." It's like, "Yeah, I took the furniture and sold it." I was like, "Yeah, thanks, man. They promised me that furniture, and I was sleeping on an airbed for 3 months." And, like, I, like, just never liked the guy after that. Because, like, to me, if the person's gonna take the furniture and they're moving in, that kind of tells me all I need to know about you. Anyways, I digress. That's, like, beyond this point. But, you know, I had fun. Like, I tried to, like, fit in the community here, because I thought, you know, it was talked up like there was actually a sense of community, but there isn't. It's just a bunch of people that occupy one building. That's fine, you know, but when I came here, I guess I was under the impression, maybe sort of, that I would be living a life kind of like New Girl, where it's just like a bunch of people in an apartment complex, like hanging out, you know, in their late 20s, mid to late 20s, just figuring life out. And maybe that was a stupid expectation, and I think in retrospect it was, right? Because I tried to, like, get to know people and hang out with people, and I felt like every time I kind of got rejected just because either A, I was intense or whatever, but, you know, no one really considered, like, I was going through shit, man. And, like, when I talk about it to people now, they try to, like, respond like, we were just waiting for you to come around because we knew you were going through stuff. It's like, no, you just said I was a buzzkill and didn't want to tell me. Like, I guess I would just have a lot more respect for people if they're upfront with me and just told me they didn't want me around, because at least, like, I'm not wasting your time and you're not wasting my time, right? And, nothing like friend-wise ever panned out here, but I did have, like, one of my close friends. We went through, like, a really fucking miserable winter together that year. He hung out and spent the weekend out here at my apartment. So we kind of lived here, like, part-time, and we just partied every weekend. It was just really fun. But, that was kind of like just to celebrate being alive and, like, feel some dopamine for once after, like, 4 years out, or 4 months of lashing myself after a bad breakup, So that went on for a while, but that era kind of came to an end when my best friend, he moved away. I think it, like, kind of happened over the span of, like, 2 months, but I remember, like, the day we last hung out, and we walked around this abandoned building that we just completely defaced and disrespected over the months that we hung out. And I think we pulled a brick, like, literally pulled a brick out of the wall, because it's, like, a dilapidated building at this point. And I still have it. I don't want to, like, shuffle everything around, but I'm looking at it right now. And I got, like, the address and, like, the date we took it. And, I used to do a lot of these, like, audio entries, and, I used to get really, really sad when my best friend would leave on Sundays, or whenever he would leave that weekend. Because my apartment was always, like, so quiet afterwards. There was, like, no atmosphere anymore. It was just me, and this big, empty vessel. And I remember that day, like, we came out there, we pulled the rock out of the wall. And I remember hugging him really tight and a little extra long. And I remember, usually I kind of, like, walked back to the back door. But I stood out in the parking lot that day because I wanted to see my best friend leave, because I knew I was gonna. I didn't know when I was gonna see him next, but I knew it was gonna be a little bit, And I've seen him since then, But, yeah, that was just, like, whoa, So, like, I didn't have internet at the time. My other best friend, we, like, hang out more online these days for the most part. So I really had, like, no access to him, so, like, I was kind of, like, alone, but it was the pristine opportunity because I started this new job, which is a very quiet but to yourself, like, factory type of assembly line job, right? Excuse me. I'm a pig. And I just sat there, and instead of being, like, hurt about my breakup and former relationship, I really took the time to, like, see it from their point of view, and, like, kind of looking at the ways, like, I reacted in certain key events throughout that relationship was, like, it was embarrassing, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was really embarrassing. And then I felt, bad about it, and, my best friend said it was like waves. It comes in waves, and it's definitely true. Like, it comes and it goes. But each time, the wave gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just kind of like a puddle, which I guess would be like a faint memory, And I'm not going to say for the most part I'm there, But I am noticing that I'm starting to get to that point with like a lot of things regarding this situation, because for a long time it was really emotionally charged for me, probably up until this spring. But you know, this person really drove me mad. It really challenged who I was as a person. It really made me like reassess my whole life and what was important to me and what I really wanted to do. And for a while I rejected my dark side. You know, I didn't want to listen to metal anymore or like rap. I only wanted to do things that did good. But I realized that I can be into all that stuff and still be a good person. It's not that I was like a religious fanatic or anything. It's just like I was really new agey and I was like obsessed with energies, and like my ex was kind of like that too. So I didn't really play like metal or anything around them. But I got back into the things I used to love before I even started dating. And I made time for myself again, and I made myself do stuff. And so what if it was alone? I still had fun doing it, whether it was a hike, exploring a new city, which I need to do more. I think I might actually do that this weekend. I don't know. We'll see. Just see what's out there. That's kind of when life started taking off, but I felt really bad about it again around that July of 2023. I kind of pulled back out of it around August, but I met someone in August, and we would eventually date for like 6 or 7 months, and I broke it off. I think I still wasn't quite over my last ex, and the relationship I was in, just after a while, I don't know, it's just like I felt like I was being like really patient, but I didn't really feel like I was in a relationship. It just kind of felt like being friends after a while. And I decided like probably the best thing would just be to like rebuild and start over, because I've been doing it alone pretty much this whole time. I mean, this has really like changed my life. I know how to be independent now. I lived in neighborhoods that are quite different from what I grew up in. Hearing people getting murdered outside my window, just gunshots in general. 4th of July is just a big game, like gunshots or fireworks, but this summer's been pretty quiet. I'm actually pretty impressed. But like 2022, shit was popping off, man. A lot of people were dying. And like someone died in like April 2023. That's the one I heard personally. But I really don't care anymore. I think this whole thing just was like forcing me to be independent and finding value in myself for once in my life, because after this has happened in my life and like having lived alone, like I'll tell you guys this, like I used to really romanticize the idea of being with someone. Like I thought that was like the be all end all thing. I'm not saying, it's overrated. Like it definitely has its place in life, but if you only focus on one thing in life, you're missing out on the big picture. And unfortunately, a lot of my mental focus was in like the love area for a long time. I mean, from like my teenage years to probably my mid-20s. a good chunk of time, if not a decade long, it's probably a little over a decade long, right? And that's when it kind of ended. Maybe actually you could say like 26, 27, right? So we're talking like 14 years of my life. Like, I tried to like either make things work or things work with people, but try to get a life started. Just like nothing works, right? Like, I'm not with anyone right now. I haven't built a life with anyone. There's no person here, you know? And I guess I thought my whole life, like, you needed two people to accomplish something. And here I am alone. And this would have totally stunned me 4 years ago. And not even in like a boastful way, like, just the basic concept of living alone terrified me because I didn't think I could hold it down back in the day. But look at me. I'm doing it, man. Anyhow, I'll probably talk about more things regarding this because it is crazy. Like, it's 2 years. And I don't know when exactly this happened. But, there is a point I just kind of realized, like, wow, I don't care about the situation anymore. And then there was another point where I was thinking about it randomly one day. I think I was sitting here just, like, looking out the window, and I was like, wow, like, a lot of time's really passed since then. It's been a minute. And then I realized, like, wow, I've changed quite a bit since then. And then I realized, like, wow, I put faith in the process, and it worked. So, in conclusion, if you get your heart broken, it's not the end of the world. If anything, it's a person doing you a favor, because at least they know that at least you aren't for them. And being together past that point is just kind of selfish and creepy. But, roll with the punches, focus on yourself, and it'll be fulfilling. That's all I gotta say for now. Peace.